Hey everyone, Nathan Long here, president of Saybrook University. Welcome to another episode of Saybrook Insights. I'm thoroughly excited about my interview today with the one and only Mr. Ashanti Branch. He's a good friend of mine and also a great friend of Saybrook University, the city of Oakland, and I would say the state of California and beyond. He's doing amazing work. A former presidential fellow with Saybrook, Ashanti has made an impact on our entire community, much as he has Oakland, and again, I'd say the nation. If you wonder who out there is doing work to advance humanity in positive ways, Mr. Branch is the photo next to positive transformational change in the dictionary. In 2004, as a first year teacher, Ashanti started the Ever Forward Club to provide a support group for African American and Latino males who were not achieving to the level of their potential. Since then, the Ever Forward Club has grown to serve both young men and women and become a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The Ever Forward Club has helped 100% of its members graduate high school. That's huge. 100%. And 93% of them have gone on to attend college. I'm going to let Ashanti give the rest of his story to all of you. It's beautiful. And I think you'll agree that his packs one powerful punch. All right, let's get to it with Mr. Ashanti Branch. Well, Ashanti Branch, what an honor it is to have you on Saybrook Insights today, sir. First, why don't you give the audience an overview of just the Ashanti that occupies this fabulous space here? We'll get into Ever Forward later, so you maybe kind of tease us up to that, and then we'll get into that later. But where do you come from? What was your journey prior to Ever Forward?
Yeah, thank you. Well, Nathan, it's so good to be here with you. I'm Ashanti Branch from Oakland, California, raised by a single mother. A lot of like childhood journeys have brought me to where I am today. I knew that poor wasn't fun, so at 15 or when I was a sophomore in high school, I made a manifesto that I was never ever going to be a teacher, and I wanted to be rich. And I worked as hard. I went to college, graduated as a civil engineer, started working on big projects. I got to work on a lot of amazing projects around the Bay Area, but also I got one of my claims to construction fame was the Animal Kingdom project at Disney's Animal Kingdom in Florida. That was my senior year of high school. I lived in Florida. I lived there for like 6, 7 months to work on that project. So that's what it was. And so started off as an engineer, and that's when the journey all kind of began to come to a head, and the passion showed up.
Wait, so you were part of this whole Animal Kingdom development thing?
Yeah,
No
I
kidding.
was on the actual I was on the construction team, so I was there before. So my station was the entrance, all the entrance, and the tree of life. So everything from the entrance when you walk into the turnstiles, and if you haven't been there, it's an amazing place, by the way. But there's real animals there. I was there when the rhinos first arrived. The rhinos were the first animals to arrive. We had a big party when the white rhino came through. And Disney creatives, they know how to throw a party.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, they know how to throw a party, build amusement parks, sell everything. Yes, yeah, that's pretty fabulous. Oh wow.
It was wild. Yeah.
So you were super concise in your bio. For the record, you have a lot more to you than that. Let's rewind a little bit. In terms of so you grew up in Oakland, California. You grew up as a son of a single mom, and you said, "By God, I'm not going to be. You're going to be rich. You're not going to be a teacher, right?" What went into all that?
Like school was tough for me. Imagine elementary school was like elementary is elementary, but I was going through a lot. I was dealing with a lot of emotional baggage. I think looking back at the story as I look back at many times of this journey is, I was sad. I had a lot of sadness. I was told I was a man of the house at 7 years old. So me taking care of my siblings was my job. Like it was not like an option. I was raising kids before I even know how to make a kid. You know what I mean? And I realized that the journey of my life was like always being responsible for other people. So at 7, I'm making formula, babies, diapers, baths, homework. I teach you kids how to. I was a teacher from, my sister was born when I was 4, so I ain't know a whole lot then. But I had responsibilities. But at 7, I remember when my next brother was born, I was in charge. Like I was taking. I mean, I was in charge of stuff at home,
Holy Toledo! Wow.
and it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. It was almost sometimes exhausting. I was like, what in the world is going on here? Why am I helping? Why am I raising, taking care of these kids, right? But at 7, you don't talk back. I started talking back till I was more like middle school, high school, right? But at that time, you just do what you're told, right? But when I start getting older, I'm like, man, I come home from school all day doing my schoolwork, and now I'm like doing my night job. So when teachers would be like, "Why didn't you do your homework?" or how you tired? I'm like, cause I got a night job. What are you talking about? How am I tired? You know what I mean?
You're working second and third shift, right? Yeah. Oh my
Man.
gosh.
But I think as I look back, I was remembering, my first few times of getting in trouble in elementary school was fights, a lot of fights. I had no emotional maturity, but also I was very emotionally mature at home. So when I got to school, it was kind of like I get to not be in charge. I get to not have a lot of responsibilities. I kind of like use school as a break. And so the schoolwork wasn't that hard, but I just didn't care much. But I got into a lot of fights because I was dealing with a lot of sadness. But in my community, if you're a boy, you can't be sad. You can't be afraid. You can't be doubtful. You gotta be confident. Like, what are these things that who teaches you that stuff, right? Like, I don't really know how to throw a ball very well. I mean, where do you learn? There's nobody at home playing ball with me on the weekends. There's nobody teaching me how to run and what form and whatever it is. So, people start talking smack on the football on the playground, and all right, well, you're gonna get one more time to talk smack, and then we're gonna be fighting. And we're going. So I think I got suspended probably 20 plus times in elementary, from 4th grade to 6th grade, and I was going to the school in Oakland Hills, and that was I was a fighter, and I don't like fighting. I never liked fighting. I never started any of the fights. I don't like fighting, but I was clear that there was rules if you didn't fight, and the rules are connected to your manhood. And I was a man at 7, so by the time I'm in 4th grade at this school in the hills, where all these kids have a lot of more resources than I do. A few of us came up on the bus up this school, but the kids who live up there, they'll talk bad to you. They make fun of your shoes. I didn't have fancy stuff. So I guess I'm staying in elementary a long time because I think it's a lot of formative things that happened in those years that were difficult for me. But I look back and I'm like, oh, I get it. And so now when I work with, when I think about the work that we do, it's really rooted in trying to help other little boys who maybe nobody sees or hears or understand. And I feel deeply connected to it. So let's say I'll move past elementary, finish elementary, go to middle school, and now I'm getting bullied, right? So I'm at this elementary school now. I'm back in the heartland of Oakland. I went from the hills to the heartland. I'm getting bullied. Didn't tell anybody. Didn't tell my friends. I didn't trust that our friendship could handle finding out that I was letting people take my lunch money. So I just kept it to myself. I hated going to school. I didn't even know how to cut school. If I knew how to cut school, I probably wouldn't have went because I didn't like going. I hated going. And every day I'm like, okay, is he going to be in here? Every time I go into the gym, my locker happened to be in the back of the gym. So he wouldn't do it in front of people. He would do it at the back of the gym where I happened to be the only one kind of at the back of that area. And he would take my money every day. Every day I had money, he would take it. And I was too afraid to stand up to him. I was afraid to tell my friends. I was afraid to tell my mom. I mean, how are you going to be the man of the house if you let somebody take your lunch money? Like, but I don't know any other skills. I don't know how to fight. I mean, I've had many fights, but I also don't like to fight. And definitely, it's a different thing when you're now some guy who's way bigger than you and intimidating. And so I just bottled it up. And so it wasn't until maybe it happened for a long time. I can't remember the timeline really of how long it happened. It was way too long, but I remember my mom figuring out something was going on, and she said, "If you don't tell me what's going on, I'm coming up to that school." And I know she meant it.
She was serious. Yeah.
Yeah. And that can only get worse when your mom comes up. So I was like, I'll get it. I'll take care of it. I'll get it taken care of. And so that day I had courage to tell somebody, and finally stopped. But it was miserable up until that point. So, and then middle school I was not doing so well academically because I was terrified at school most of the time, but I was also like just carrying all that baggage in the back of my mind all the time. But Um, my English my math teacher in English. What language am I speaking? My English teacher in middle school is who really like this one sentence changed my life, and I was in detention because I was often in detention, and but I liked her, and I thought she liked me. Like she knew I didn't like her class. I didn't like most of my classes, but she was like, I don't care if you don't like my class. You're gonna do the work anyway. Like it was like that energy from her. Like this is not gonna be taken lightly. And she said after school one day, she was like, "Look, Shanti, you're too smart to be acting like you're dumb." She's like, "I know you're sad that your father died before you were born, but you're using that as an excuse." She said, "Life doesn't give you what you want. Life gives you what you get, and you got to make the most out of it." And that's the sentence that changed my life. And from that point forward, it all turned around, and I was taking care of business. I was focused. I mean, some teachers would like, some thought something was wrong. They were like, Ashanti, you're okay? Like, you're doing work. You're paying attention.
Huge.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
this work ain't hard. This work never was hard. This is easy. I just don't care about this work. I don't care about you. I don't care about this work. But I realized that once I turned that around, a lot of things changed. And by the time I left middle school, I was actually leaving early in middle school to go to the high school to take a second math class because our school didn't have it. So the only way I was going to get to like calculus by the time I graduated was I had to go to the high school for the second half of my day to take geometry. So that's the only way I could get to, because the way the schools worked back then, it was different. So ninth grade was in middle school. So I only had 3 years of high school, 10, 11, 12. So that my journey was like walking every day. We didn't have a lot of money, so I couldn't really take the bus. Every once in a while I could get the bus every once in a while, but mostly I was walking from my middle school to the high school to take this class with a bunch of high school kids. And I think the journey was like, there's something on the horizon here. Like people are like, why are you here? Like, why are you doing that? I'm like, well, it's the only way that I can get. And like, what middle school is talking about? What middle schooler is talking about trying to get to calculus? Not in my city. It wasn't. It was almost like an anomaly, right? But I didn't think I was anybody special. I just knew that I had to work harder to figure out this next chapter of my life.
Ashanti, I was just thinking about that. I was doing everything I could to avoid taking a third, second, or first math class, let alone like advanced. That's amazing that you were like, okay, I need this to get to here, to get to calculus. Now, there's a missing piece to this, right? Because, like in this current narrative, there was something in there that said, okay, I need to get to calculus. I need to start taking these courses. To what end? What at that time, while you were in the early phase of your kind of charting out your future process, were you thinking? People can read your bio, but I think the way you tell your story is pretty powerful. So what was in the horizon for you that you saw math as critical?
I don't know. I think that when I finally got my act together, so one of the stories that happened in middle school that I think what made me push harder is okay. There's this rich school in the Oakland Hills called Head Royce. Now, Head Royce is an independent school. I don't know what all that means at that time. It's the school on the hill. It's like right next to the in Oakland. There's on the hill. There's a Mormon temple there. And then right down the hill from there is this school called Head Royce, private school. Now, there's a test that students get to take your eighth grade year. I think it's eighth grade, and there's a scholarship available to students who get the highest score on that test. Now, math was my easy subject, but remember, I was a knucklehead, so I didn't like a lot of my teachers, and a lot of them may not have liked me. So the day that test was supposed to be taken, my teacher sent me out of class, so I didn't get to take the test. So I remember like I think I came back to class the next day or whatever happened. They were like, "Oh, you lucky you didn't get to here yesterday. You didn't miss that test." I'm like, "We didn't have a test yesterday." They're like, "Because I'm on track at this time." Like I'm like, We didn't have no test yesterday." They're like, "No, we took that test for that scholarship, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "That was not yesterday." And so I went to the teacher and I was like, why didn't you tell me that test was yesterday?" And I remember like the look on his face was kind of like this, it sucks to be you. And from that point on, oh, it became a battle. Like I was like, and the guy who got it, I think he was smart too, but I believed that I was smarter, right? And I missed that scholarship because of this teacher, and we had it was a personality issue, right? I'm what am I? I'm a 10 year, well, I'm in 12, 11. I'm a kid, but this teacher took it personal, and that it made me miss that test, and that is one of the things I think that set me into another level of trajectory. I'm like, how do I get out of this class? And he was the only algebra teacher at the school at that time, so I had to be in his class, and I was like, I'm gonna prove him wrong. So I started doing all the extra work to figure it out. I don't even know how I even found out about it. I think another teacher who liked me I was like, well, look, how am I gonna X Y Z? And they were like, well. And they just told me how I was going to do it. And I was like, and then we called the counselor. I went to the counselor's office. I was like, I need to talk to somebody at the high school. I need your help so I can take, and I knew what I needed to do. But I knew that it was going to be complicated. And they were like, why do you want to do that? I'm like, the next person who asked me why I want to do this, like the only way I'm going to get to calculus by the time I graduate high school is I got to take this math class now. Now I already got a plan for, so I had it was like I was on. I think my mom never told me I had to go to college. And I remember, I don't know what grade I was in, but I remember watching an episode of the Brady Bunch. And for those who haven't seen it, Greg is the oldest brother. And and I didn't have a dad in my house, so he had mom and dad. But the dad was like, you're going to college. And he was like, I'm going to join a band. I'm starting my band with some friends. And he was like, no, you're going to college.
I totally remember this episode, by the way.
I'll never forget it. So I marched into my mom's room after that episode is over. I'm like, I think I'm a little mad at you. She's like, why? I was like, why you never told me I have to go to college? And she was like, are you going? And I was like, yes. And she was like, well, I guess I didn't have to tell you. And I don't know what reverse mind trick she pulled in that moment, but I was a little upset. But I was also like, how did this happen? Because it was not forced on me. It was a thing that at some point along the journey of doing really bad in school and becoming a good student that I knew had to happen. So I didn't know what it was that told me I was going to go to college and why I needed that calculus class. I just knew I loved math, and all my other classes had no interest. I had no interest in my other classes. So the only thing that got me excited at all about school was math. So I'll fast forward to high school. When I got to 10th grade, I tried to join a program called Upward Bound. Upward Bound is a program for first generation high school students or first generation college students. And so I turned the application in the next day, like I was like ready. And then all of a sudden, the lady calls me in. I'm like, I'm going to this interview. I got this. I'm going to college. And she's like, Ashanti, you have an amazing application here. I said, oh, yeah, I didn't know interviewers were this soon. I just turned the application in like 2 days before. She's like, well, no, I just wanted to tell you ahead of time that unfortunately you don't qualify for this program. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't qualify. How don't I qualify for this program? Like, you help first generation college students. I'm first generation. And she was like, no, actually, you're not first generation. Your mom on this part of where your mom filled out, it says your mom is a teacher. And I'm like, so what does that mean? She's like, well, if your mom was a teacher, that means that she went to college. And I'm like, wait a minute. You telling me that my mom paid for an education for us to be this poor? I knew two things that day. One, Ashanti Branch would never, ever be a teacher. And two, that I was going to have a talk with my mom about her career choices. Because as broke as we were, the fact that she had went to college for that, that was unacceptable to me. And I was clear on that day. So my journey through high school was like, okay, I can't join this program. What other resources are going to be there for me to make sure that I get? Because Oakland, wasn't necessarily producing a bunch of scholars. I mean, I'm sure there were kids going to college every year, but we didn't talk about them. Their picture wasn't on the wall anywhere. There were no flags around our high school about who went to what college. There was none of that happening at my school. It was like, just finish high school and then go get a job or something. There was nothing. You weren't even expected to make it to 18 for most of our young men in our community, right? People were getting killed. It was in the height of the crack epidemic. Like, going off to college didn't even seem like something that people talk. No one talked about it. My peers didn't talk about it for sure. And so I knew that there was a journey. So anyway, I'm taking you way back, but it's all as I look back to like how this work is so enveloping me today, because some of it was internal, and I wish there was somebody external helping me. I felt like I was by myself a lot, and definitely since a lot of my peers weren't there being like, hey, you got a good grade on that test. I had to hide good tests. When I got a good test, I would hide it in my backpack. Because usually during that test, some of my friends were asking me for answers, and I was like, I can't do it. I can't tell you. Right? And so I felt bad that I was going to be in an argument, fight, whatever, but it was a a lot of emotional stuff too, that I was navigating it.
And that's a powerful story. I mean, to hear that your mom, you didn't even know she went to college to become a teacher, and then to really reflect on this as a kid to go, well, that's the last career I need to be in because I'm living in this situation that is not from your perspective healthy, not getting you where you need to be, not good for your siblings, even her. And you decide that you're going to go to college, and so you had the upward bound come back and say, well, you don't qualify. And then you decide to go on to college, and I believe, do I understand correctly, you went on to college for a degree in engineering. Is that correct?
Yeah, I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, one of the top engineering schools, and it was amazing. It was amazing. It was the change I needed. I got accepted to some schools local, but I was like, I'm getting out of here. And if I could have, after day after graduation, if I could have moved out, I would have moved out the day after graduation. I was ready to go. But when I got down there, I mean, I remember the first night of my dorm life, like there were cows mooing on the back hill because Cal Poly is in the middle of a mountain. It's a valley, right? So I'm like, I open the window and there's these cows on the hill, and I had to call my mom like, I need you to hear this. Like there's no when I went home during Thanksgiving break, it was the first time I'd heard sirens in like 4 months. So
Oh my
September,
gosh, yeah.
October, November. So maybe like 2.5 months, no sirens. And I'm like, I hear cows every night. That's what I hear. No helicopters. I get back to Thanksgiving break, and I hear of the first siren, and I'm kind of like freaking out. Like, wow, this is. I had gotten desensitized the fact that that's a normal thing, And I think when people talk about you change when you come home from college, I think it's impossible to try and pretend like you didn't change is probably what people have to do to protect their image or their ego. But there's a lot of changes happen when you leave from an environment where looking over your shoulder is what you do all the time without thinking about it to a place where you're walking around on the college campus at midnight, 2 in the morning, and nobody's thinking anything of it, right? Like it's a whole different reality.
Whole different reality. Yeah.
A whole different reality. Yeah.
So you did this degree in engineering. You get done.
Yep.
What do you do from there?
Making money.
Making money.
Making money.
Okay.
Yeah. I moved. So I got to come home first. My mom didn't help me with college. I pretty much took care of college myself. I had some loans, and she was like, "Well, look, since I couldn't help you with college, if you want to come home after college to pay off a lot of your loans, before you go off, that's the best way I can help you. And so I was like, okay. So I went home for the first 2 years, I think, after college, tried to pay off as much of my loans as possible. And then I ended up moving to a city called Walnut Creek, which is fancy. And and it was like beautiful and quiet and calm and yuppie and I don't even know what that word means, but that's what is there. And it's it really was like this space of like, oh wow, look at this, like, and I think that is a big piece of the journey, right? Of like, oh wow, I made it. Like I got this little condo. I park underneath the building. I go up to my little spot to hang out. My neighbors are so cool. Like just I live across the street from the grocery store. Like I live right downtown from all the little fancy shops in Walnut Creek, and I was like, all right. But I think what was happening at that time, I bought my first big TV. I remember buying the big TV, and I bought Xbox for Christmas that year for myself, the first Xbox. And I remember finishing the game Halo. I remember when I finished the game Halo, because all I would do was come home from work, eat, and then start playing video games. Boom, boom, boom. And I finished the game. Like I mean, literally, I think it's probably the second game I ever finished. And they were like, "Congratulations!" There's a little cartoon at the end. They tell you some stuff, blah blah blah. And I'm like, "Yeah, okay. That's it. I guess I gotta find another game to get excited about." And I really, in one of those moments, I was like, "There got to be more. There, come on now. You just finished a game. You're happy for 10 minutes. Now you're like feeling like the dopamine hit was so quick and in and out that it was like kind of confusing. And I remember realizing, okay, something's missing. Like this, I'm supposed to be the happiest ever. I'm supposed to be happy ever after right now. I didn't finish college. I got a good job. I'm making money. I'm living in Walnut Creek. I got a big screen TV, and I just finished this game. Like, what? Why am I not happy? Why am I not more happy than I'm feeling right now? And I think there was a calling already on my heart and my life that it was more. And that's when my friend invited me to tutor. He asked me to come tutor at this program. And I'm like, when? He was like, Saturday mornings, 8 o'clock. I'm like, yep. I don't even know what Saturday mornings look like. You know what I'm saying? Saturday,
You're right.
I don't get home to Saturday like 2:33, 4, like 8 a.m. I don't even know there is 8 a.m. on Saturday morning. I think Saturday starts at noon or 1 o'clock.
Yeah, right.
And he was like, "Come on, I need you." And I said, "Man, look, I only have. I mean, I liked my job. I was in engineering. I was building cool things, but I felt like there was something a hole there, right? Like, and I think that I didn't know what it was because you're supposed to be happy after you go to college and graduate and get a good job and make a lot of money. Like that was the trifecta, right? And I was missing something, and so I was like, all right, look, you got 2 months. You better find another teacher because I'm giving up happy hour on Friday. If I got to give up happy hour on Friday, when am I happy?
Yeah, right.
Because this all this other stuff is not doing it. It's only fleeting happiness, and that's when it all kicked in. And that first Saturday getting up, I remember I didn't even know how to go to bed on a Friday night. I'm not used to like laying down to go to sleep. I fall asleep. I fall asleep wherever I was last at after the party was over. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like to go to bed on a Friday night felt almost like I was cheating. I was cheating. And and I drive back from Walnut Creek to Oakland. Got to go through the Caldecott Tunnel. I pop out on the other side. On the Walnut Creek side, it's sunny, and you pop out that tunnel, it's cloudy.
Cloudy.
It's
Yep.
cloudy,
Yep.
gray, and you're like, did I really sign up for this? And I'm mad. I'm irritated. I'm not mad at the kids. I'm mad that why'd you do this? Because I'm literally like the temperature is changing around me. Come through the tunnel. I'm in gray sky. I'm like, what the heck? I get to Mills College, get in there. Kids are showing up late. I'm just a volunteer teacher, for this time period. They may have been giving me a stipend or something, but it was more like I'm just here for a few months. I'm not here. This ain't a job. I'm helping a friend. And literally, in that class, a kid walks in at like 20, 30, 40 minutes late. And he's like the mayor. He's like everyone knows him. He's like Norm on Cheers. He comes in and everybody's like, "Hey!" And I'm like, "What's going on here? Who is this?" And they're like, "Oh, he's in this class." I'm like, "No, he ain't. He's 40 minutes late." So he has to go around. Everyone wants to give him a hug. Give me a hug. Give me a hug. Give me a hug. Everybody's giving a hug. High five hugs. I'm like, "Come here, come here, come here." I told him to come over to me. I said, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I'm in this class." I'm like, "Not when you show up 40 minutes late. What you think this is? Don't you know what this program is? Like, how dare you show up here 40 minutes late and then like want to say hi to everybody for another 10 minutes?" I said, "You're going to sit down here in the front." He's like, "Oh, no, my seat's back there." I said, "Not today. Your seat is right here in the front with me." Now he's shocked. First of all, he's a black young man. He's shocked that somebody's talking to him like this. Second of all, he's like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm the new teacher."
And he's like, oh no.
It was almost like he was irritated, but he didn't have much of a choice in the sense that I was in charge, but he had to sit in the front, and all his friends kept calling his name. I said, "Stop calling his name. He's 40 minutes behind right now. Get your work done. Let's go." Right now, I'm a new kind of teacher. I don't know how the teachers normally act there, but I'm an engineer. I know that you got to get through this. I wanted to be in this program. Remember, oh, by the way, I'm tutoring at a program called Upward Bound.
Ah, okay, right.
I'm tutoring at a program called Upward Bound that I wanted to join that I couldn't join, and these kids were here like in this moment of like, I mean, all of them weren't goofing off, but the scenario happened where this kid was goofing off, and I remember like, oh wow, there's more to this. There's more to this journey of like, oh, this is my touch point with Upward Bound in a new way, and I drove back through the tunnel that day, plotting what I was gonna do with that kid the next week, like. I got a plan. I'm plotting. And I'm like, Shanti, what are you taking this so serious for? You're only here for 2 months.
You're lesson planning, right? You're kind of already, so yeah.
That's right. And that's how it happened. That's how the journey happened. That's how the call on my heart that you're supposed to be. This is what would bring you alive. And look, every day I'm in my engineering job, I'm thinking about how I'm gonna engage, connect, like make sure that young man is present in this opportunity that he has in front of him. And I'm only literally there for 2 months, and I ended up being there for almost 2 years. And that's how it happened. That was a call on my heart that I should be doing something different.
And that's how it happened.
That's how it all happened.
Then what happened?
Okay, so I was working there, and then I got a job at the building I was in. They had a Huntington Learning Center down below, so I started tutoring at the Huntington Learning Center because it was right down below my building. I was only tutoring on Saturdays, I think twice a month, maybe 3 times a month, but it was just here and there. But I started wanting more, so I started working at this Huntington Learning Center. And a kid one day came in, Lucas. This is in what city was I in? Pleasanton. Lucas, a little white kid. He's working on algebra. I'm sitting at the table around the corner because way it works is you come into Huntington, you take a test, and then have you practice, to build up your skills. So he's coming in for a tutoring session, not necessarily the regular Huntington's, structure. He needs help with algebra. So he comes around the corner. He's looking for his tutor. I never met him. He never met me, but he's sure it ain't me. So he comes around the corner. I'm like, "Are you Lucas?" He's like, "Yeah, I got his paperwork right here." And he's like, I'm looking for my algebra tutor." I'm like, "Yeah, that's me. Come on." Now, now I'm like matter of fact, like no big deal, but I don't realize yet what's happening with him. He's like in doubt. Like I'm pretty positive he had never met somebody like me before. So I was like, So what you working on? Like what you need help with?" He said, "Well, I'm doing algebra." It was almost like he was in doubt that I was gonna be the person fixing this problem for him. I'm like, "Oh, algebra. I love algebra. I got you, whatever." And so anyway, long story short, we're doing polynomials. I teach him a shortcut. He says, "Is that it?" I'm like, "Well, you can make it harder if you want, but that's the shortcut. If you want, like try it yourself, And he does a problem, and he asked me, "Is that the right answer?" I'm like, "I don't know. Look at the back of the book, And I had already knew it was the right answer, but I needed him to have the discovery. So he flips to the back of the book, and he sees the right answer, and he's like, and the light came out of this book, like literally. And that's when I knew that it was getting worse of this calling on me, right? I was only tutoring at that point, but the calling that I was supposed to be doing more of this was really real. And I left my engineering job and got a promotion to make more money as an engineer because I thought that there was no way that I'm going to be going to a job where I don't make money. Money is the solution to my happiness. And then after that, I was at that new job down in San Jose. I was driving from Walnut Creek to San Jose.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Oh, it was ridiculous. When people talk about chasing money, I know what it's like. Like the amount of effort it takes to drive an hour and a half each way without traffic.
Oh.
It takes something in you that is a driving force. And I'm clear that I was chasing money, and teaching. It called me. It called me, and one of my buildings caught on fire uh, during this project I was working on, and I decided maybe this is the end. This is the call to me to make a move. And I went back to Mills. I went back to Mills College to go to grad school, and that's when I started teaching, and that's when it all happened.
Awesome. And so the transformation you had going from this work in teaching to ever forward is pretty powerful. Um, but and we could get into all the particulars around how that manifested. But one of the things that has fascinated me today was really understanding the foundational cues, the kind of the makeup of who you are from that young Ashanti to that kind of right after you got the job. I mean that's been a gap for me in our long relationship that we've had, to understanding the motivations. I'm all about like, where did that all sort of manifest in childhood? Because there's always manifestations in childhood. Even that kid who was sitting down with you, right, and learning about polynomials, and from a man, he's like a black man. He's like, I've never seen anyone like you before, and algebra. Oh my God! And then it's like, wow, so light bulbs go off for so many in that space. It's just fascinating to me to hear that journey of yours, and then you come from teaching into this space of seeing a huge need, and it's pretty impressive, I think, how you identify that, because you were dealing with your own masks that you have been wearing since childhood as a young man. Um, let's talk about Ever Forward. You saw that need, one of critical importance. What was the need, and what was your vision for addressing that need?
So I'm a first year teacher. I've left this engineering career. I got engineering check stubs in my desk to kind of just take me back every once in a while. I am absolutely failing. I'm doing a horrible job. Like here's what I'm doing horrible. I got smart kids in my class that are failing, and I'm like, you can't fail my class. Like you got to fail. Look, there's plenty of teachers here that don't like you. Fail their class. Don't fail my class. And I think what I was confused about was that these smart kids, I could tell how smart. I could tell they were smarter than me. And I'm like, dude, you're. And now I'm teaching freshman algebra. I am remember being in algebra class. I remember like what I thought I knew, and I could see kids who were like more brilliant, and I'm like, dude, you're so smart. Why are you failing my class? But what I realized was that they didn't have a Miss BP in middle school who helped turn the light bulb on for them. They didn't have a teacher who gave them the magic sentence that helped them see, oh wait, there is more to me. Oh wait, life has been hitting me, but I don't have to get stuck behind it. I gotta keep take what life gives me and make the most out of it. And I'm like, why didn't you have a Miss BP? And that's how it all happened. So it was these young men who were kept coming to class. They were there every day, doing almost nothing. I'm like, dude, you're here every day, but you're doing nothing. There's no way for you to fail this class if you just try a little bit. And I think that because smart wasn't cool at that school that I was teaching at, and because I was already an adult who had a good job and made a lot of money and was now in this profession, I forgot what it was like to be a middle schooler. I forgot what it was like to like pretend like I wasn't smart because I had been trying to be as smart as I could for so long that I had forgotten what that feeling of like, and when I saw it in them, I'm like, oh man, it's not going to happen while I'm teaching algebra to help them break free. I need to help. I need to go back to Ashanti as a little kid. What did you want, Ashanti? What would you have wanted somebody to come and support you with? And so, because I'm definitely a good eater still to this day, I said, okay, invite him to lunch. So that's how it started. I invited some young men to lunch. I said, look, I'll buy you lunch once a week in exchange for lunch. Teach me to be a better teacher. I was going to go with an inquiry, like teach me to be a better teacher. What am I doing wrong? I know math. I love math. I'm not in this job for a check. I'm in this job because I want to help you have a better future. And what I realized in that moment was that I had to prove to them something. I had to prove to them that they mattered more than maybe they felt like they mattered. And so lunch was the easy way to do it. I could buy them lunch, and that's how the lunches started. The lunches started. I wasn't creating a nonprofit at the time. I was just trying to help some kids pass algebra. I didn't know where my journey was going, and I think deep down I probably thought I'm in this teaching thing. I don't know what it means, but I know my job is not to just barely make it. And teaching was struggling. Teach as a teacher financially. I didn't really plan it out really well. I didn't strategize. It wasn't like, oh, here's my 3 year plan. Like I literally made it. My building caught on fire, like in the month of say May maybe, and literally I gave my 2 weeks, like a couple of weeks later, because I was like, this is a call in my life, and so I didn't plan, I didn't strategize, I didn't save a lot of money. So every time, like every once in a while, some smart kid, smart mouth kid, more I should say, that would be like, "You only here for this check. You don't care about us," and I'd be like, "Listen," and I'll go over to my desk and I'll pull out one of my engineering checks and I'll pull out one of my teaching checks and I would very immaturely, because I know I was being immature in this moment, I put it down in front of them. And I'm like, this is what I used to make in 2 weeks. And this is what I make here in 1 month. Now tell me that I'm here for some money. And it don't take hard to look at these two numbers and know that you would have to be an idiot to think you were coming to this thing for money. Like, and most of them were like, they would be like, they look at me and be like, you left this? What made you come here? What's wrong with you? Because I think in their minds they were like, no one with their any intelligence would leave that, right? Because I would make more in 2 weeks than I made in a whole month as a teacher. Like, and I realized that deep down I was, I mean, it's kind of immature, but it's also real. Like, don't tell me I'm here for money. Let me prove it to you, because I'm nothing to hide. My salary is online. You can look at my salaries online and see what I make, and be clear that I would never have made that choice for financial gain. And so that's how it happened. That's how.
And you were there for the kids, and that was something that, like you said, that calling was on your heart. But did the irony of you saying 15, 20 years before, there is no way I'm ever going into teaching, kind of hit you when you hit the application button on the school district website, and did you call your mom up and go, "I'm sorry"? No, I'm teasing.
Well, I think if we let me see how many years ago was that? Was there even an application online? I don't even know if there was an application online when I started. I rem- here's when I remember it happening. I remember being at a place in my life when it really hit me that I went to get a job at Chili's to bartend because I still was trying to make ends meet.
As a teacher, so you were a teacher, and now going on to Chili's to bartend.
Yeah. Well, they didn't have a bartending job there. They said we'll have you as a server, and I was one of the more mature servers, because most of the servers were 18 or younger. But I realized that it was like one of my vice principals came to Chili's to eat, and I was like walking by. I wasn't serving their table, but I was walking by to another table. I was like, Mr. Branch. And I looked and my heart dropped. And I'm like, hi. It was like right after school, right? It was like, I left school, go to work, my second job. And I was like, oh, how you doing? And they're like, oh, what are you working here? I think they have a hard time even asking me. Like they were shocked to see me, but then they were like, what do we say? Like he's working at Chili's after he leaves his teaching job? What? Because I had still had an engineering kind of lifestyle that I was trying to like downwind from still, but the teaching salary was so low that it was my first year in grad school. I had used up a lot of my savings because I'm not really. I was kind of still working some other little side jobs to kind of keep things because I was still living in Walnut Creek. So it was like it was so much happening in my world that it was like it was sad. It was actually sad to me. It was actually sad. I was like, what are you doing? Like deep down, like what are you what are you doing? Like you left your engineering job to be a teacher. You're barely making ends meet. You're starting this mentoring program where you're having lunch for kids every week. Now I had engineering money at the first couple of lunches, and then teenagers eat a lot of food, right? So I'm starting to be like, okay, I've committed to them for every lunch. So now I need to and so now I'm like trying to do this thing on the side from the side, and so I had to find another way to supplement my resources, and I felt sometimes really really disappointed. Really disappointed. So when kids would say something like that, and it will happen a couple of times a year, I'm like, I'm not here for no money. Like you have no idea what you're talking about, first of all. And so, but I think it was definitely ironic, but also deeply moving that somebody would do that. Like what would make somebody leave all of that for this, right? And I think it's only purpose and passion. It's only like it's not logical. When people who have families who have forced them into careers, like I don't know what that feels like. So I guess I can understand it, but I get the idea if you like how you want somebody not to suffer like you suffered, right? Like if you suffered financially, if you suffered and you want your child to have it better than you, I could see the push to like don't do it to yourself. Don't do it to yourself. But I'm clear in some of those days I was like, what are you doing to yourself, Ashanti? What are you doing? You're doing this to yourself. You're going into this passion work, but it's not paying you, and therefore you're barely making ends meet. Actually, you're not making ends meet. Your salary alone is not going to make ends meet. So you're having to go get a side job, and so dealing with people who have to tip you and all that. And I was saying some days I felt small. Sometimes, like I think as a teacher, I was clear that it was the work that I was supposed to be doing. Like there was no doubt that I was not only good at it, that I loved my students, but as a kid in the 10th grade who said, not only am I, like, I think me never being a teacher wasn't about teaching, it was about money. It was about being able to live a lifestyle that I could create for myself. And so me deciding to be a teacher wasn't like I was against teaching. I was against the lifestyle where I'm going to work super hard and barely be able to survive. Like I did not want that. So it was more feeling like a failure. It was like, I don't think money is the only way to feel successful, but I think money you can count.
It's tangible. It's right here.
It's right there. It's tangible. It's like, okay, I worked really hard this month. Here's what I have to show for it. But as a teacher, you're working really hard and there's really nothing to show for it. Not financially. And there's only so much you can do with good feelings to pay the PG&E bill. You know what I'm saying? I've never been able to talk to the PG&E lady and say, hey, I helped some kids with algebra last week. You want to?
Where are my energy credits, lady? I need those. Yeah, that's right.
Oh my, there's got to be some energy credits in there somewhere, right? Oh man, and I think that is deep down the hardest part of the journey. It wasn't hard. Making the decision was an easy decision. It was the aftermath and some of the pain that went along with it and around that. So
It was walking the miles, putting the miles on the shoes or in the car, right, as you're moving forward in that space, and kind of the ideal sitting there in your head, the imagined, and then the reality kind of crashing up against that, and kind of realizing it. And yet, see, I will get emotional too because I saw firsthand. I often go back and think about my own life as a little kid and how someone like you would have made such a big difference in my life growing up. And I think, like, we'll get into this in a moment, but like all that imagined has played out in reality today. If you ever get a chance, for those listening or watching, to see Ashanti in action with these kids, and you see the light bulbs already, like they have lit up, and they're glow like millions of lumens, like just like you could see the light right there, and you've cracked through something with those kids. It's a gift in so many ways, and so all that sacrifice that you've put in, and I listen, I know you, I don't know that you would categorize it as that, but for the monetary benefit, but it is. I mean, let's face it. It's a you put a lot of time and effort, and you're a brilliant man. I mean, on top of everything else that you do, and then to be in this space, and you're going, what am I doing? And you come up with this idea around Ever Forward, and you saw this need. What was that need that you saw? And what is that vision that you had?
I was thinking of it just recently, and we've been trying to name it into a description. I think I was seeing young people who were emotionally locked up. Like they came to school, they had to be cool, they had to act a certain way, but there was something going on behind that scene. And we weren't using the metaphor of a mask back then, but what they were doing is they were showing up to school with these emotional masks, like locked up. Like I mean, because I saw them not just as a name on my roster or a box to check. Like I saw them as people. Sometimes it was hard for them to accept that they were being seen for real. And I saw them when they finally gave you room. Now in a class, it wouldn't usually happen, but in our club, it was a space to be heard and seen. When many of them realized that they were not alone, like, wait, you're how are you going through that? You got like the brand new Jordans, you got good clothes, you're on the basketball team. How are you going through that? Because on their minds, what they saw is what was happening. This kid is perfect. Oh my gosh. You got a girlfriend, you got two girlfriends, you got whatever you got. Like all the things you got on the outside is what students would only see. But when we came to that circle, it was like, what's happening for real? What's going on behind what we can see? I don't care what your point score was on the game last week. How are you doing? And when they began to see each other as more than just the external stuff that they had been showing each other outside of our circle, that brotherhood began to grow. And what I saw in them was this: they were emotionally locked up. And what I realized is that if you don't give young people a way, and it starts with young, it starts when you're young, but a way to find a way to unlock those bottled up emotions in a healthy way. Well, first of all, those emotions are going to come out in some unhealthy ways: numbing, bad relationships, violence, gangs, drugs, alcohol.
Fighting, yeah, whatever, yeah.
And we're going to end up locking them up for real. Like, if we don't navigate and help them unlock the fact that, oh, I'm human. I'm supposed to have a wide range of emotions. I'm not supposed to be happy all the time. I'm not supposed to be necessarily sad all the time. I'm supposed to have a multitude of ways of being. And when I'm not having pleasant emotions. I need to know how to deal with it in a healthy way. That's how we help them. And I think it's been a beautiful journey. Um, and so the masks, the emotional mask, is our language now. The movement we created was about masks. It's like what is it that you let the world see about you? What's happening on the outside, and what's happening behind the mask? What's happening? What is the things you don't let people see? And what we often see is that they recognize that there's so much more. There's more to them, there's more to me, there's more to you than anybody can see by looking at us, but we may have gotten really good at this mask. And so therefore, how do you change it? And that's how it all has begun. That's that journey of like seeing that there's more to them. And when they began to see it in each other that there was more to them, that space began the safe space. And I think sometimes even I'm on a men's team now, but when I started the Ever Four Club, I didn't have a men's team. I didn't even know it existed for men. I joined a fraternity in college. My fraternity, we partied a lot, but we didn't talk about emotions. We didn't talk about feelings. Nobody talked about what was happening after the party was over when you're by yourself. No one talked about it.
Could you imagine if we applied that to all the issues we've got currently in the United States and around? Like, how many of us are locked up emotionally and we're not dealing with the behind the mask stuff? I think that's you've hit on something big. I think so. As you've grown ever forward, well, I wish we had like 2 hours on this. I'm gonna have to get you back because this is you've just the story is good and the kids you're impacting who are young men. I shouldn't call them kids; they're really young men, right? When you first did this, how did the kids initially respond? And what were the early results? Did they think you were full of garbage? Did they think you're like, my mask? Yeah, right, man. I'm just going back to when I was like 14, 15 and thinking, what's this guy talking about? I'm not going to talk about my feelings.
In the circle ever forward, it became really beautiful because we didn't use the word mask. We just said, hey, check-ins, because we only had lunchtime. So everyone get their food, or everyone go around and do a check-in. What's good? What's not? What do you need help with? And that's how it started. And when people were saying what's good and what's bad, other young people were like, wait, you're going through that kind of stuff at home, or you're coming with that? Like it was more just like an early level of like, I didn't know what I was doing yet. I was still figuring it out. I was making it up. But what we did do is we said, okay, there is more. So when we started talking about the mask, it happened when we were filming for the documentary. The first time we had done the mask activity, I was like, well, these young men are not talking about it. I was working with a group of young men at Fremont High School in Oakland, where I went to school. I was a dean, and they were failing most of their classes, a lot of them. And they were always good. Everybody's a 10, checking in at 10. But when we did that, they couldn't talk about what they were going through. I tried ever forward stuff with them. They were impervious to my skills as a mentor. I've been doing ever forward for like what? That was 2013. So I've been doing ever forward almost 10 years, and I had my powers were weak. And so I said, well, how about we don't talk about it? Just write it. And we drew it. We wrote the words on the front of the mask and the back of the mask. They balled those pieces of paper up. And that's what you see in the documentary, The Mask You Live In. That's the first time we had done with masks. I didn't know it was going to work. And when we threw these pieces of paper at each other, when they opened up one of those pieces of paper, it wasn't their paper. And they realized, oh my God, wait, somebody else in here is going through this? How's that possible? And I think it was the first time they finally really saw each other. And they realized, oh, we've been all pretending. We've been all just putting on a show for each other.
Yeah, in that very moment, that very nugget of that moment, you got people to see, like really see inside the other, and just that it sounds simple. It is simple, but it's so powerful.
Yeah, it almost seems too simple. I was just talking to I'm gonna show you one right here because I happened to remember I was talking about like this idea of like if we don't give these young people a place to unlock. A man who's doing working in prisons, he's out in Tennessee. Ironically, I just happened to realize he was Tennessee. I'm gonna show you a mask from a man incarcerated,
Oh wow!
and this is his mask. And this is the front. Is what they let the world see on the front, and the back are the things they don't let people see. And I mean,
Yes.
30-year-old, right? And you realize, you know, it's what we see all the time. We see these same masks with high school students. They're bottling up sadness and stress and pain and depression and anger. And guess what? This man actually didn't get unlocked enough so he could deal with it. So he had to be locked up for real.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, we have to find a way. And that's part of my work. That's what I feel I'm called to do in this work is more than just, it's helping young people realize that you're not alone and you're feeling stuff that's human to feel. But in our community, definitely as boys, we don't give a lot of our young men space. I mean, I think people are talking about this a whole lot more than they ever did when Ever Forward started in 2004. Most students would be like, like if a student would come and they had never known what ever four was, they'd be like, "Where are the girls? Why is there a bunch of guys in here by themselves?" Because it just didn't seem like a normal thing that any young men would want to spend time with each other. But because there's a stigma, and therefore, if you are a part of it, there must be wait. And I think when people started coming and they started realizing, oh, I really want this. I really want to have close friendships in a community and a society that says I shouldn't want it, and if I want it, it means I'm not a man. That's what we're trying to do for young people. And the mask movement is everyone. It's not just young men, but this happened to be a picture of a man. So
Grown men need it too,
yeah,
big
for
time.
sure, we do.
Yeah, well,
I do.
across the board, I do.
I'm
Yeah,
that man.
well, I'll raise my hand to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's excellent. So, what does Ever Forward look like today? Like, if you could say, okay, it's went from this to this. Where do you see it headed after that?
We are so the Million Mask Movement is our global movement. We have collected over 70,000 masks from more than 30 countries. We are growing the movement this summer. We're building out a social emotional leadership academy with young men here in the Bay Area. It's like a 15-month program. We're getting close to 100,000 of masks. So our goal is like create a celebration around that 100,000 milestone on our way to a million. And it's really a million people that just are reminded that there's more to you than people can see. You know, people have asked me, "What do you do once you get to a million?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out what to do when you get to 100,000." But what I have learned, I didn't get into this as a researcher. I got into this as a teacher, helping some young men talk about their how what they were going through. And so what we're going to start trying to do is put out some some white papers, and like we're trying to work with some a researcher to help us research what we're learning. We're learning a lot, but I'm not talking about it in research language. I'm talking about it in heart and soul language. And I think it's trying to get that heart and soul language translated to where the people who give money for people doing really important work, grants, philanthropy, that we help translate it in a way that they can hear it and see it. But it's working, and it's been really beautiful. So we're growing as an organization. We will, we're hiring this summer. We're trying to hire. We're probably going to double or triple in size over the next 5 months. Yeah, we're on a growth spurt right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, you didn't talk about this, but I want to tell you the the presidential fellowship that Saybrook provided for me was life changing, and I think that that time just to be able to not stress about how we're gonna where we're gonna meet with our team and where we're gonna be, like your insight to make that available was is a pivotal part of my journey and my life, and I want you to know that I really appreciate you.
Well, back at you. I mean, you made a. I've always said you have been the one of the most foundational human beings in my life that I've met in my career. And I mean that. I mean, like, very powerful. I think we share similar value sets. Um, and I think the impact you're having on the community is amazing. And I have said to you, and I will repeat this: you need to move to LA. You can have a whole wing of our building if you want it, because I'll make it happen.
Oh
You need to get
man,
down to LA, but let me know when you're ready for
it's tempting.
Ever
It's
Forward.
tempting. It's
Yeah,
tempting.
I'm just saying.
I'm presenting at the NatCon conference coming up in 2 weeks. So I'm gonna reach out because I'm gonna be definitely in the I don't know in the LA area. So I don't know exactly where I'm gonna be yet, but I'm gonna be down there.
Or get an Ever Forward chapter down here. We'll make it. We'll make something happen for you for sure.
Man.
So we have to. Golly, man, I wish we didn't have to end. So we have two quick take questions for all of our guests,
Okay.
and it's our little homage to Saybrook and what we do. The first, and these are quick, so whatever comes to mind. So you don't have to like
Okay. Okay.
worry about like I gotta get it right. I gotta get an A on this one.
Okay.
The engineer and you can take a pause. Yeah.
Oh man. Okay.
All
Okay.
right. So, what does the term humanistic mean to you?
It means that I am full being, that I'm whole, that I am both soul and flesh and feelings, and that I should be able to find a way to show them all. That's my fast answer.
My God, that's as good an answer as I've had in 40 episodes. They've all been great. That may have taken the cake. That's awesome. All right. And then the last one is, what is something someone anywhere in the country, around the globe, can do right now? Three things they can do to impact their mental, physical, or emotional well being, or all three, whatever comes to mind.
Ooh, wait, thank you. One is they should make a mask. They should go to millionmask.org and make a mask. And after they make their own mask, I think they should find somebody in their life they really care about and ask them to make a mask and ask them to talk about it with them. I think they should write on their wall and or mirror or something they look at every day that just says to them, write a letter to themselves that says, "There is more to me than people can see." And I'd say maybe that's the three. But I would say if anything else they do is to just never forget that there's more to you than anybody can see by looking at you.
Bam.
That's our invitation to the world.
You nailed it. That's awesome. For our audience members, for our students and our faculty, you all live out all over the country. Get on that millionmask.org.
.org. Yep.
Get on there. I think all of you could set up mini mass sessions, right, in your state, your community. Get this done. It's a powerful exercise. I vouch for it. I'll go do it again. So we'll get that done. Fabulous three takeaways. Ashanti, where a couple places people can find you on the web?
For everywhere, we're at Ever Forward Club. That's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. And if you want to see the work that I'm doing speaking around the world, is at Branch Speaks. So Ever Forward Club or Branch Speaks.
Branch Speaks. And can we find that documentary still online?
Yeah, it's on. You can find it in lots of places. Lots of libraries have it, but you can also just go to The Mask You Live In and on YouTube, and the trailer is there, and there's other ways you can find out how to watch it.
Awesome. All right. As always, it's a joy, a pleasure, the best thing ever. Appreciate you.
Thank you, man. It's so good to see you. Thank you for having me.
That was an incredible interview, everyone. Thank you, Ashanti, for being on here today. I hope you enjoyed Mr. Branch as much as I did. Remember the three major takeaways he offered. Make a mask, go to millionmask.org. Find someone in your life that you really care about and talk about that mask with them. And remember to say that phrase, "There is more to me than people can see." If you want to see the YouTube version of today's event, I'll call it, please visit our Saybrook YouTube page. If you'd like to support the podcast, go to Apple iTunes and or Spotify and leave that 5-star rating, and make sure to follow us. You can, of course, subscribe to us on most major podcast platforms, including Google, Stitcher, Pandora, and all the rest. Remember to check our show notes for information on today's guest, Mr. Branch, including links to his website, books, etc. And make sure to go to millionmask.org to make that mask. And for more about our university, go to www.saybrook.edu. Click on areas of study at the top of the page and locate the program of your choice to learn more. Or simply Google Saybrook University. Thank you, everyone. Take good care.